So if you don't already know, Lachlan broke down on the side of the road. And here is his MR2. It's in my garage now. We're jacking the car up and we think we found the issue. We're thinking that the timing belt actually snaps because when he starts the car, the top of the belt, you can see the top of the belt, it doesn't actually spin at all. So we're hoping that the timing belt snapped. Also as well, this is a non-interference engine, so it's not going to cause any issues at all. And we should be good. So a lot of people say to remove the timing belt and replace it, it's easier actually removing the engine. And because there's such little space down in this little crevice over here where the timing belt is, you can see why. There's barely any room to work with. You can barely get any of the tools down in there to remove even the timing cover itself. So it's just easier to drop the engine. I thought this would be a great opportunity to document exactly how to remove an engine from an MR2. You can see here I've written up a list. This is the stuff that we have to do. Now it might look intimidating for those people doing this for the first time, but it's actually really simple. If you take these steps one at a time, it's actually very easy to do. We also have the boys over here. You want to introduce yourself?
I am Ashley from Apex Media. How you going? I'm Josh, I'm from Adelaide and I'm the proud owner of a MR2 as well and a Suzuki Jimny.
Every MR2 owner is tall. Look at this. Let's get this. The same height.
Now this may seem really intimidating at first, but it really isn't. It's actually very simple. First thing we need to start off with is removing all the surrounding parts around the engine bay. So you want to start off by removing the strut tower brace, then removing the engine lid panels, and of course, like any other big job, disconnect your negative terminal on your battery.
Just one quick tip as well, if you do want to remove the engine in your garage and you don't have a hoist, a quick tip is to actually get the car up on ramps. As you can see, we've got it up on ramps because that'll give us more clearance. You can put it up on jack stands at the front, but this gives you more safety because when the car tilts up like that, when you're trying to get the engine out, you don't want it sliding off the jack stands. So it's easy to just have some ramps there.
And next we need to drain all the coolant. With our MR2, we don't have any under trays where the bumper is, so we can get straight access to the drain plug. If you do have to take your under panels off, all you'll need is a 10mm socket and that will take all the under panels off. You'll need a very big bucket, and if you want to remove all the coolant, then you're going to have to use the 2 drain bolts in the middle of the car. Because we're doing this nice and simple, a quick trick is to get someone to blow into the radiator cap. As you can see, it works quite flawlessly and we can flush most of the coolant out.
Oh!
And now that we've drained all the coolant, we can start removing all the coolant lines. There are 2 that go to the heater core, as you can see here. Then there are 2 bigger lines that go from the engine all the way to the radiator. These 2 lines are located on either side of the engine and are here and here, and may need a bit of finesse getting these things off. Just be careful because there will be some remaining coolant in the coolant lines and it will cause a little bit of a mess. Now after we've done that, we can start removing all the connectors around the engine bay. There really isn't any rule to this, but if you see any cables going from the engine to the chassis, just remove them and make sure you take plenty of pictures as you go. It's really good to label everything with some masking tape. However, don't be too stressed about this because every connector is different and it's pretty hard to confuse them all with each other. At this point, we may as well start removing the brake booster line, which is located over here, and then we'll need to go into the boot, remove the boot lining, disconnect the ECU plugs, and feed them through to the engine bay.
So we need to remove the harness from this fuse box over here, and it's pretty complicated if you don't know what you're doing. You're going to be mucking around for a while. Shout out to Camille again for actually showing me how to do this. You got to undo these 2 bolts here, and then pretty much yank this up. It's pretty intimidating at first, but you literally got to do what I said. Just yank it up. You'll see what I mean in a sec. Like I said, this is a very intimidating cable if you don't exactly know what you're doing. So you got to remove these 2 plugs. As you can see, it's very easy. There's just a clip on each one of them, and you remove the 2 10mm bolts that hold this in place. If yours is loose, then you're going to have an easy time. If yours is stuck in place, which is probably going to be the case if you haven't removed the engine before, you're going to have a hard time. So you literally just got to yank up like that.
Bit aggressive.
That's what you got to do to get this out. And then we can just rest this away. Easy done. So there are 2 other cables connecting to the igniter as well, and the spark plug distributor thing there. So you got to undo those. They're just underneath this fuse box. And of course, then you got to go into the boot, unplug all the ECU cables just through the boot, bring it through this little hole over here. Very easy.
We can now remove the throttle cable as well as the wheels and the exhaust. The exhaust is very simple to take off. There's about 4 screws holding everything together. You can choose to remove the exhaust hangers, but it's easier to remove the bolt that holds the exhaust on. You'll also need to remove the downpipe, which is the pipe that connects the headers to the muffler. Be careful with all these bolts because they will be rusty and you'll have a hard time getting them off without stripping them. Use plenty of lubrication and be careful to get that socket on properly, otherwise you will strip it. After you've removed the exhaust, it's time to crack the axle nuts. You can do this at the start started the process by taking off the center caps and putting the wheels back on, and then having the car on the ground. But you can brake the axle nuts if you have a strong handbrake. And as you can see, we had no other option because we didn't want to lower the car again, so we yanked the handbrake up and broke the axle nuts.
We thoroughly cooked it.
Unfortunately, we don't have a Milwaukee half-inch impact gun, so we can't actually just zap this thing off like Camille did on my MR2. But yeah, this is
The good old-fashioned way.
the good old-fashioned way. Oh!
Oh! Yeah, that was not tight.
I was not on tight enough. Good, good.
We'll next need to remove the AC compressor lines. There's only 2 bolts holding these lines to the compressor. However, please be aware that there is pressurized gas in these lines. So don't go undoing these lines unless you have your AC refrigerant removed. After that, the next step is to remove the airbox. The airbox in our case was held in by some 10mm bolts, very easy to remove. But this is a stock airbox and it's very rare for MR2s to have a stock airbox.
Next one.
ECU plug, tick that, dude.
Cut check.
Nice, only a couple things left to go, plus some other stuff that we haven't added to this list, of course. Oh, there it is, fuel lines. So we're gonna skip some steps and now undo the tranny fluid bolt because we want to drain all the transmission fluid, because it's just gonna be easier doing that than having fluid come out where the axles go.
But due to our YouTube magic, when we clap our hands, the engine will be out.
No, we're not gonna do it that quick, dude. So Lachlan's gonna go ahead and undo that bolt, and then we can have the tranny fluid come out of the transmission. Also, I can't stress it enough, if you're gonna drain your transmission fluid, make sure that you undo the fill bolt first, because if you can't get the fill bolt off and then you manage to drain all your fluid, you're not gonna be able to top it up, and that's exactly what you don't want, because then you're proper screwed. So Lachlan actually undid that bolt to make sure that we could get fluid in the transmission, and he's now going to drain the tranny. Here it comes.
How fast do you reckon it's going to come out?
I don't know. It's not too much. This tranny doesn't hold too much fluid.
Oh my god. Why is it pink? Must have been some ATF in there still.
The fuel lines are really easy to get to. All you need to do is look at the fuel rail on the engine, then you can see where that line goes. That's the fuel return line, so you want to remove that one. And then you want to unplug the fuel line from the fuel filter. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of that, but I'll throw up some pictures of where they're located in the engine bay. And after that, you need to remove the subframe. If you look at the subframe, you can see there are 2 arms on each side going to the subframe. You firstly want to remove both bolts on each side of the subframe, and then you'll be able to wiggle both arms out of their holders. A good tip is also to put the bolts back in where you found them, so then you'll be able to locate them very easily. You'll also need to unbolt the engine mount, which are the 3 bolts in the middle of the subframe. There are 3 14mm bolts, and that's everything disconnected from the subframe. The final things you'll need to remove before you get the subframe out are the sway bar end links, and if your car has ABS, you need to remove the ABS sensors. You'll then find 4 bolts on each corner of the subframe, and all you need to do is get someone under there holding it, and then you'll be able to unbolt those 4 bolts. Be careful, this subframe is decently heavy, so make sure you got a proper hold of it before you remove it.
I'm getting hot.
We're getting pretty close to finishing this. We've got the shifter linkages and... Oh, let me check that again. Oh. Shifter linkages and subframe.
Linkages.
Linkages.
I love my shift linkages.
I hate you,
And
Nathan.
my hungry janks.
I hate you.
Hungry Janks.
I don't say Hungry Janks, I say Hungry Jacks.
You also don't say a grouse.
Having a look at the whole car, it looks like we're pretty much done. Time to take a break. We're gonna get some food or some drinks. Nathan, where are we going, dude? Where are we going, dude?
Hungry janks.
Oh, look at our ride, guys. Mummobile. I mean, that's the Mummobile, but this is also the Mummobile.
Show the tires.
Oh yeah, guys, look at the tires.
Semi-slicks. Boy, it's got a lot of power.
Look at the trim.
Other side. Other side.
Other side?
Other side of the semi.
Semi-slicks.
Oh, I'm ready for some skids.
Let's go. Shotgun? No, I call shotgun. Yeah, thanks, Nathan.
Lachlan, you know what he does in the morning? He turns his car on the red line, then he goes dun 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 and plays easy on full blast as he floors it away from his house.
Fucking front wheel
Go,
drive.
go. It's easy, it's just
on the
straight.
inside.
Yeah. Just legit floor it. Go. Right. It's all-wheel drive.
Jesus.
It's all-wheel drive. You can do skids in this.
That is a no bueno.
Dude.
That's it.
Almost fucking been the car.
So Lachlan thinks that this car is front-wheel drive. Nathan and I both think it's all-wheel drive because it just did that skid. Wait, what? Are we wrong? Oh, dude, it's got axles going to it. It's an all-wheel drive. You can see, Lachlan. It's all-wheel drive.
Really?
It's all-wheel
I
drive.
thought Lachlan was about to get 2 with W's.
Oh, Lachlan, you cooked it.
Now we can do donuts in this thing.
We're
Would you let me drive? And I'll pay for the insurance if I bin it. I'll pay for it.
Mum's no claim bonus goes down the bin. That's fine.
I'll pay for it. Because I have an all-wheel drive car, I know how to control all-wheel drive.
What, you were paying out of pocket to fix that car and the other car?
What other car?
The other car that you hit?
No, I'm not gonna fucking hit a car, I'm not that stupid. I would have fucking written off my car by now, but with how many skids I've done.
Just gonna take a seat in this lovely cafe.
You look straight.
What are we getting today, Lachlan?
A reasonably priced milkshake.
A reasonably priced milkshake.
Reasonably priced.
How much are they?
$6.90 for a big...
Okay guys, enough mucking around. We're gonna get back and get this engine removed because we need to get it out tonight, because I'm sure this video is gonna be titled "Getting the Engine Out in an Afternoon" or something like that. Woo! Woo! Whoops. That's the airbox.
Fucking stop, you dickhead.
We now need to remove the axles from the transmission. Now another tip is to get the axle bolt back onto the hub, and while the arms are disconnected, use the hub to smack back on the axle and eventually it'll come out. That's the method we used. It's probably not the best method, but it definitely works and we didn't really have an issue. If your axle's a little bit more stubborn, you're going to have to remove the hub so you can get a little bit more room to pull the axle out. There are no bolts holding the axle in. The only way of removing these axles is by pulling on them.
Hey, shorty, what it do? I'm just flexing with the gang, yeah, I'm flexing with the crew, yeah. Diamonds dripping and stressing, money, power, the fame, yo. I be giving out lessons. Now next with a Lexus. What's whack, it's impressive. Hanging out with the gang.
Lexus. Okay, so these shifter linkages down there need to come off. So there's a cotter pin in each one of them. All you need to do is bend them and pull them out, and you'll see that everything comes apart. There's two washers that surround the shifter on both of them. There's only two shifter linkages, so just be careful of the washers coming out. You'll see what I mean when I take it apart. That is the last step, and then obviously we need to remove the engine mounts.
And once you've removed the shifter linkages, there are about 3 bolts on top of the slave cylinder. So you'll see where my hand is currently, that's where the 3 bolts are. You want to remove those 3 bolts. I believe they're a 12mm socket, and then you'll need to go under the car to finish off the last step.
So put the torch up. So guys, this is the engine mount that we're talking about. It's kind of part of the slave. You can see that this bracket right here is part of the slave cylinder. It all, is one piece pretty much. And it's connected behind the engine mount, which is kind of strange. So what we're going to do is remove the 4 bolts here. There's 4 bolts holding this part of the engine mount on. Then we're going to undo this. Then this whole piece should drop. Then we'll undo the bolts that are connected to the transmission. Then everything will be able to be moved down to the side, so we have clearance to remove this engine. It's pretty straightforward. I'll show you more as I go. But and then we drop the engine. And then. Just to be safe, we have a jack, a wood block, and that's going on the back engine mount that we haven't removed yet, where the subframe actually bolts onto. So you can see it's all well supported. So when Lachlan removes that, the engine is still supported by 3 engine mounts technically. So just a little bit of extra safety, and I highly recommend it. Highly recommend that you do this just to be safe, because you never know what could happen. The engine could fall on Lachlan's face, and then we wouldn't have a butler to help me out.
That would not be ideal, would it?
Once you've removed the bracket, that's it. That's pretty much the last stage. You can see that we're bringing the engine crane out because it's time to remove the engine. The only thing that we need to do now is remove the engine mounts while the engine crane is hooked up to the engine, and then all we need to do after that is lower the engine onto a block or an engine dolly. It's as simple as that, and that's all you need to do, and it's so simple that anyone could do it, including us, who purely just do car stuff for just a hobby.
Okay, so we have the engine stand, and we're connecting it up to the engine. We're just using these 2 little crane points. There's one there, and there's obviously one on the other side. It's pretty obvious on the other side. You can see there's... Yeah, this one's a little bit harder to find, but obviously you can see it here. Anyway, we're gonna have this all supported, and we're gonna start undoing the bolts down here. It's pretty simple. There's this weird little thing here that there's this weird little bar that pretty much allows the engine to move back and forward, and it stops pretty much this sort of movement. I'm just using hand movements because we're trying to get this done.
Forward and back movement.
Hungry Janks. We're gonna take this off. It's I believe 1 bolt there and 2 bolts there, and then obviously you got to remove that little bar bit down there. This is 1 bolt there, 1 bolt there, 1 bolt here, 1 bolt there. Then this engine mount is held on by 3 more bolts. There's 2 on the bottom that you'll need to go get underneath the car, and there's another bolt there on this side that's on the top, and obviously you do that last when you remove all this shit out the way. If we come on this side, Get out of the way. If you come on this side, I believe that you just removed these 3 bolts there. I'm just going off the top of my head right now, but I'll definitely correct myself when I've taken all of it apart. Well guys, this is removing an engine in one singular afternoon. Hope you enjoyed that. It was very stressful towards the end because we found out that the engine crane was cooking itself and it was slowly lowering. I don't know what the hell's wrong with that. Here's a better look of the engine just sitting down there. Look at that. It's just at the bottom on the dolly. Let's get the light as well. Oop. There you go. It's a little bit sketchy as is because it's just kind of, it's pretty loose. Let me just give it a bit of a rock. Here you can see I can move that with one hand, so yeah. But at least we have the engine out. Like I said, it isn't very intimidating. It shouldn't be very intimidating doing a engine swap or engine removal because it's actually quite simple. If you look at this list, it's probably 10 things that you need to do before removing it. It's gonna take a couple hours. You know, we did miss the fact that you have to remove the fuel lines, but that's pretty much it. There are a lot of other things you can do. Every car is going to be different, but obviously for an MR2, these are the main things that you need to do. Apparently it's a lot easier than any other engine swap or engine removal because it's very basic and you don't have these sort of things in the way like the brake booster and the battery and the slave cylinder because that's all in the front. So yeah, this is the aftermath. One thing that I do recommend when you do this is to block off the AC compressor if you do have that and it is running because alright, so if you didn't watch the previous video where the MR2 actually broke down, you should probably watch that. What the fuck are you doing? So we found out that we think... Oh my god. We think that the timing belt has snapped because when we turned the key, when we took the timing cover off, we can see that the cam gears on the top weren't moving at all. It looks as if the whole engine is spinning because we can see it rotating when Lachlan cranks the car, but it does sound like not all of the engine is spinning. So it's spinning really fast, which could mean that the cams aren't spinning and they aren't. So we think it's that. So that's exactly the reason why we removed the engine because apparently doing the timing belt, it's easier to remove the engine than fiddle around with it in the car. So yeah, if you guys want to see us put this engine back in, make sure you also comment saying that you want to see that because I don't know if you want to see that.
No, they don't want it. They just
they don't want it? I guess we won't give it to them.
No, 100 likes and
300 likes.
Oh, 300.
300 likes and we'll make a video of putting the engine back in.
Cool.
I mean, we're probably going to do that anyway, but...
Let's be adventurous, 500.
500?
500 likes.
You reckon 500 likes?
I think 500 is a good target.
I don't know.
I reckon 500.
It is way ahead in the future and we've gone ahead and removed the engine totally from the car. You can see it's just sitting over there. But I thought I'd conclude on another day because I have been editing all day and I want to speak to the camera. Anyway, like I said, removing an engine from the MR2 isn't that hard. Obviously we've done this before, but if you're a first timer and you want to give this a go, because you want to do an engine swap, because you want to fix your engine, then definitely give it a shot. You do need an engine crane and some ramps. And you'll need like a rope to jack the whole entire car up to get the engine out of there, which I didn't explain in the video, but you can watch my other videos to figure that out. But all in all, went pretty successfully. So, engine's out, we're gonna work on that. This is for another video. Big thank you to all for watching. If you got to the end, thank you very much. And of course, as usual, if you have any questions on anything to do with this, make sure you comment down below. If you think that I did anything wrong, comment down below. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike. Really helps give me an indication of where I need to head in terms of video ideas. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next one. Peace out.